A week ago, I uploaded that 2-minute travel film from Lamu that you guys have just watched. I really hope you loved it because I really put my heart out into it, in case you hadn't noticed. I'm impressed that I was able to bring out an idea that I had in my head and bring it to reality. Since that film was very well received by a lot of people on YouTube, maybe I'll just do like a quick little editing breakdown of the process that I went through. So first thing I did was actually scripting. I used a notebook. I have a notebook where I write down all the ideas that I have. I decided that the easier way to just script this video was to actually write it down on a book or a piece of paper so that I can just look at it and then I'm able to figure out what parts I want to change and what parts I want to keep. And then it took me like about a week of just playing around, just minor changes, like I'm removing one sentence and placing it at a different part of the script, or I'm removing one word entirely. After a week I was comfortable with what I had, and that's when I decided to type it into my laptop on a program I use. I don't know if I can call it a program or software called Notion. So that's what I used to type in my script. But you can use Microsoft Word, you can use Google Sheets, you can use any software that allows you to type in content to actually type in your script. Second step after scripting a video is to record the voiceover. Now I'm a big fan of films that have voiceovers, especially travel films, and that film that I actually made was very heavily inspired by films by people like Sam Newton and Peter McKinnon. So I recorded using the Boya by MM1 microphone, which I actually just plugged into my phone and used the recorder app. But you can use any device really that can record audio. You can even just use the recorder app on your phone without having to plug in a microphone, which is still okay, because as long as you get the audio and you can be able to make it sound better in post, then you have all the audio that you need. Like you don't need to actually buy an expensive microphone. After recording the voiceover, what I did was I took the voiceover and I took music from Epidemic Sound that I wanted to use in this specific film, and then what I just did was I layered them up. So I had like music on the bottom layer, and then on the top layer I had the voiceover. So I cut up the voiceover and the music so that I get an idea of how the pacing of the final film is going to be and how I'd like the film to feel, because I'm a huge believer in making people feel stuff in films through audio, because half of the film is hard. Like if you go and watch a movie in the theaters and there's no sound, you're only watching half a film. But if you're listening to only the sound and there's no visuals, that's half the film. So the first half of the film is actually just placing the voiceover there and the music, because those are the two base layers that I have in my edit. And then I just find out how the pacing of the final film will be and how the mood will be like of the final film, so that when I'm selecting footage from a different timeline, because I use pancake editing, which I'll get into a bit later, it's just easier to sort out what footage works with the film and what doesn't. Now it's important to note that you're not going to find the perfect song on the first try, so it takes a little bit of trial and error. The biggest advice I can give you is just take a couple of songs from any stock licensing site, or if you feel like using any licensed music, just use the song anyways. Just get the song, put it on your timeline underneath your voiceover, and play it and try listening to it with your eyes closed and imagining what type of footage is going to be over that and how it feels, and if it goes hand in hand, if the song you're using goes hand in hand with the particular theme of your voiceover. So the next step is really simple, because this is now where I use the pancake editing that I mentioned earlier in I think step 2 or 3. What you want to do is you have two timelines, and then one's on the bottom of another one, so it's kind of like pancakes stacked on top of each other, and then the lower timeline or the upper one, depending on your preference, has all the footage. So what you do is you just drag all the footage that you shot into one timeline, and then the other timeline is just empty, has the voiceover and the music ready. So now what you do is you start importing clip by clip into that final timeline of your edit. And a big advice I'd give you is after every major portion of your editing, just duplicate your timeline and call it version 2 or something. So you can have like for example, this one was called Find Yourself, so you can say Find Yourself edit V1 and then Find Yourself edit V2. So V1 will just have like the voiceover and the song, V2 can have the voiceover, the song, and uncut clips, And then V3 is where I've cut the clips. Then V4 is where I've done a little bit of reframing and stabilizing shots. And then V5 now has sound design, and then V6 is the color graded one. Now you can do this if you want. If you don't want, you can just, if it's a fairly simple project, you don't have to do this. For this particular project, I didn't actually create so many duplicates of the sequence that I was working with, because it was a fairly simple project. It wasn't that complex apart from the sound design bit, but I feel like I should have probably just duplicated it just in case I went further down the line and I was like, I need to go back. Next step is sound design. Now sound design is very important. It's very underrated. Sound design is basically where you have all your sound effects there. If there's an explosion, obviously you don't have the exact sounds of the explosion. I also use the Epidemic Sound to do that sound design. So the last step is color grading. Now in color grading, I'd advise you, before you get to this step, just review all your footage to make sure everything is okay, and you're like, because this is like the last step that you'd want to do before you do anything else when you're editing your film. Now what you can do is just grab an adjustment layer, place it on top of all your clips, and then you can just add a basic correction LUT. Now I shoot everything that I work on with the CineStyle because that's the best I can get with my camera, so I have it installed on my Canon 250D, and then I made my own correction LUT, because the correction LUT I found on the internet was kind of too harsh. It was crashing the blacks too much. It wasn't according to my taste. So after you get that correction LUT on there, you just watch the clips, make sure everything's okay, then delete the adjustment layer, and you can grade each clip individually, or you can use adjustment layers to grade your clips depending on whatever floats your boat. Yeah. Now for a quick bonus tip, I'd actually advise you to create proxies for your edit. Like every footage that you've shot that's in the edit, whether it's going to be used in the final film or not, create proxies for it. And the best time to create proxies is at the end of your shoot day. Basically, open up Premiere Pro, import footage into your project, and create proxies. Now you're going to need media encoder for this, and it's a whole other process which I'm going to discuss in a later video. If you're watching this after that video has been released, I'm going to link it up here. Hopefully I don't forget. And yeah, that's basically how I made the film. If you haven't seen the full film, it's just like 2 minutes and 1 second long. You can click the link in the description down below. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and hit the bell icon next to it so that you get notified when I make any future uploads. Peace.